What's up, Everybody Nation? It's your boy Manny here. Welcome back to the Hoop Report, the NRM's Basketball Podcast, episode number 64. It's time. Final Four. The Final Four. Fab Four will be taking place tonight, when you guys are watching this, Monday. And then tomorrow, Championship Tuesday, we will crown our 2025-2026 Red Banner winner. So crazy. Long seasons come to this point. Very excited to talk about, a little bit of 316, not really going to touch too much on the Sweet 16, more so the Big 8 on what happened, and then obviously some previews for going into the Fab Four and the Final Two. Now, the way I'm going to do this, I'll talk about obviously the two Fab Four games, but then after that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to specifically talk about why I feel like each team can win the championship. Because obviously I don't know who's going to end up playing. I don't know what the matchup is going to be like. But I can still talk about, hey, this team to me seems really on another level right now. Or if this team and this team match up together, I don't know if it's going to really be a good showing for everybody. So that's how I'm going to plan it out. And we'll get right into it. So we will start with, I feel like the biggest game of the day in terms of outcome, Dakota Wesleyan and Bethel. That one to me was the biggest game of the day. Why? Because it felt like Bethel had it. Bethel had it down the stretch. I remember the broadcasters saying something about it. I wanted to check. Yeah, only 6 turnovers. 6 turnovers for pretty much for the whole game, obviously. But it felt like that last one, just over 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, was the one that really sparked the comeback that kind of pushed the Tigers over the edge. Bethel played great. Bethel did not play bad. You had 35 from Micah Hart. You had 21 from Mikey Buchanan, 11 from MJ Simmons. It was a Bethlehem performance. Dakota Wesleyan just had a 40-point performance from one of their players, plus 21 from Avery and 12 from Emma Yost. It went the way I thought it was going to go. I mentioned that it was giving Game of the Year vibes. Do I think it was Game of the Year? No, but I do feel like it was the level that we expected it to be in terms of two really, really well-coached, two really, really talent-filled teams going at it. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, I was focused more on the Bethel offense versus Dakota Wesleyan defense. And I think it held up to standard. I really do believe that both teams played their part and showed why they needed to be in the Big 8. Obviously, one team has to lose, one team has to win. So it was a tough loss, I feel like, for Bethel, but I don't think it was that they lost. I think it was more just Dakota Wesleyan was able to make some plays and get over that hump down the stretch. But yeah, that was my biggest, best game of the day, I guess you can probably say it. Going from that to the blowout of the day, it was Marion versus Campbellsville, 73-43 in favor of the Knights. I just feel like Marion's on their level, y'all. I mean, 24 and 21 from Abby McNally. A 2020 game is ridiculous. 16 for her Taylor double. 10 for Kylie McNally. The team is just on. The team has been looking like world beaters all year. All year. Obviously they aren't perfect. Obviously they have lost some games this year, but what they're doing in this tournament, I know, and I'm one of them. I've looked at Marion's schedule are in the tournament, and obviously you have the 16 seed Haskell, handle them. Columbia, I thought was going to put up a little bit more of a fight. I do believe that they had the talent to at least maybe give Marion a run for their money, but I think the defense was just different, and Columbia wasn't ready for that. That was your second round matchup. Then you have Shawnee State. Love what the Bears did this year, but we all know that there was definitely a discrepancy in terms of just levels in that matchup. And even though, the Bears started off pretty hot, up and down, getting up and down and going, I just feel like there was too much ISO ball, too much one-on-one, and so that plays right into Marion defense because one-on-one, they're going to make you work for everything. They're going to make you have to be just perfect on that side of the ball if you're going to try and play that style against them. So obviously they go out and handle business. And then Campbellsville, again, Campbellsville had a really good season, really, really impressive win against Spring Arbor down the stretch in the Sweet 16 to cap off that round. I think probably the game of that round. But again, there's levels to this, and I do believe Marion has been a tier above everybody. I know some people might say, well, they haven't really been tested yet. They're going to get tested next round. They're going to get tested against Dakota Wesleyan for sure, but there's something to be said about they're not getting tested because they are not allowing to be tested. You know what I'm saying? I feel like Marion is showing the side of that coin where a lot of people talk about. They're always going to talk about, oh, well, they haven't seen a close game. They haven't seen one come down the stretch. They haven't had a game within even 15 points, I believe, this tournament so far. But that's because they've been that good. You know what I'm saying? That's because they've been that dominant. And the teams that I do feel could have done that, they didn't run into them. You play who's in front of you. And this is why you also work all year for this. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, you don't control who's in front of you in terms of seeding. But at the same time, you fight for the number one seed, like Marion Knights did, so that you have favorable matchups throughout the tournament. Obviously you have a 116 in the first round. Second round, you have an 8 or a 9. In the third round, in their case, they ended up getting a 12 seed. Hey, credit to Shawnee, like I said, credit to Shawnee State for getting that far. But for Marion, that's what you fight for. You fight to try and get through it. And the next round, like the team that they just blew out was the second seed in their quad. So it's not like they played another double-digit seed. They played the number 2 team in that quad. They just handled business. So I do believe that the Marion Knights are very, very, just looking impressive right now. I mean, I'm watching that game and I have no notes. I have nothing to say about this team. What can I say aside from their defense is suffocating? I'm watching them play against the Bears, against the Tigers, all these teams, and there's no driving gaps. There's just a bunch of length, a bunch of physicality. They're forcing you to one shot only. Every shot is contested. Every shot is tough. They're grabbing the rebound. Now we're pushing in transition. They're moving the ball up the court. They're getting into their playmakers, to their best players. Abby McNally has just been on a tear in terms of being the focal point. She is the offense right now. And I say that in the sense of both sides. She's offense and defense. I mean, she's been their best player on defense as well, protecting the paint, getting some blocks, contesting shots, getting the rebound. She's the one in charge of the rebounds, 21 rebounds. And to paint the picture, 11 of them were defensive rebounds. So this has been an impressive performance for her. She's going to be another year. She's a first-team All-American. I don't see why she wouldn't be. So they have done everything. On offense, they're, 24 by her, but they're moving the ball side to side. They're shooting 47% from the field, 28% from three. I mean, it's not great, but does it really matter right now? Because they are doing this in their strengths. Their strengths, defense to offense, and they're forcing the ball inside. 32 paint points in this game against the Tigers. They've had about 25 plus paint points every single game this tournament run. That is going to be an impressive thing. I started with those two because obviously those two are going to play. What I'm looking at in that game is two of the best defenses in the country having to go head to head. Now, on the offense side of the ball is where this is going to really come down to it. Why? The Marion Knights have an Abby McNally. They have somebody, and I've talked about it, as the tournament's gone on, I've talked about, hey, once you get to this point of the year, or the point of the tournament, I should say, you are going to rely on your best players. Here's the ball. Take me there. That is going to be the biggest thing moving forward. The Marion Knights have that. They have an Abby McNally who can go out and on any given night give you 25, give you maybe even the 30 ball. You know what I'm saying? That's what she can do. I look at this Dakota Wesleyan's roster. They've got a lot of scorers. They've got a lot of big-time playmakers. They got an Avery Broughton, Emma Yost, Riley Rosenquist. Obviously, Rosenquist, shout out to her. Got to give her a round of applause. 40 points, a career night. Couldn't have picked a better time to have a career night for her. Obviously, talking about that last game against Bethel. They have all that. They have some great players. Do they have an Abby McNally is the real question, and I don't think they do. I don't think when the scoring gets tough, when the Marion Knight defense, which is going to do, locks it up, forces you into tough shots down into the shot clock. You can't get any flow. I mean, the Tigers last game had 21 assists. I'm talking about Dakota Wesleyan. For Campbellsville, they had 9. Right? And I do believe Dakota Wesleyan obviously is a better team than Campbellsville, but my point still stands where teams that do generate 15 or so plus assists, they don't do that against Marion. They don't have any type of continuity, any type of flow. Instead, they're having 20 turnovers like Campbellsville did. So that's what I'm looking at in this game. I don't think it comes down to Marion has a better defense than Dakota Wesleyan. I'd argue the defenses are neck and neck. Neck and neck. You know what I'm saying? I do believe both teams are going to be very, very locked in on that side of the ball. Offensively, though, that's what I'm looking at. And that's why, again, you kind of focus back onto the Marion defense, because not only does Dakota West, well, I will say this, Dakota Weston doesn't have a number one, like, scorer. You know where the ball's going to go. You know, when you play Marion, you know it's going to Abby McNally. When you play against Adore, you know it's going to Macy Severs. Like, when you play against these teams, you know where the ball's going to go. Not even Dakota State, when we get to them in a few moments here, Tabor Teal, you know what I'm saying? Like that, you know these things. But that could also be the real deciding factor. And that's why I say the offense for Dakota Weston might be the biggest X factor of this game, because if the Tigers are able to deal with this Marion Knights defense of moving the ball side to side, piping it around, all these different things, now it becomes harder to guard. I've always been the one to say team offense is harder to guard than one-on-one basketball. It is. But at the same time, one-on-one basketball, 9 out of 10 times, wins you games down the stretch, right? Wins you those close ones down the stretch. Why? Because you need to have those players. You need to have players that are built for those moments. Do I think Dakota Weston has that? Of course they do. Of course they do. But what I mean is, I don't know if I've seen enough of, I'll put it like that, a player on Dakota Weston's team, hey, give me this ball on my spot. You know what I'm saying? Give me the ball right here, run a quick action, get her an ISO look right there. You know, a Bethel, for example, last night down the stretch, the ball was in Michael Hart's hands, top of the key, let her work. Let her work, right? So that's what I'm looking at in this game. Can Dakota Weston's offense find some type of success against the Marion Knights defense, which has not been the case all tournament long for anybody that they've gone up against? Now, this is definitely the best team that Marion has played so far, and I do go back to what I said at the beginning of this segment. Hey, the Knights have not fought anybody like this yet. But at the same time, this is still the Marion Knights we're talking about. So I don't think, and they have experience all across that roster. They've got experience in the coaching staff. Like, I'm not saying that that's going to be the end-all, be-all reason that they were to lose this game, but I do think that holds a little bit of weight. I need the Tigers to come out in that first 2 minutes, 3 minutes. You got to punch first. Because if you let Marion feel like they have control early, it's a wrap. Right? For me, I am going Marion. I do feel like Marion is going to be the one to come out and edge this game. And I mean edge by like a point, 2 points, whatever the case is. I do believe it's going to be the close game down the stretch. I have the Knights in this one. I don't have them by much, and I'm not confident in saying Marion, but I can't go against what the Knights have been doing all year, all tournament even. They have been on a tear, and again, I've also been one to say these are the games that I use to test or to see how much of a champion are you really, because good teams battle it out with these teams that they are better than. They'll end up winning. But it was longer than it should have. Great teams, same thing. They'll win the game. Took them a little bit longer to get going. Maybe a half, maybe a quarter and a half, whatever the case is. But they end up winning the game. Elite teams, there was not a question. From the jump, it's just different. They knew they are the better team, and they're going to impose their will for 40 minutes. That's what the Knights have been doing. For 40 minutes, every single game they've played, they have proven why they are the number 1 seed in the quad, why the number 4 team overall, why they are who they are. So I credit that. I really do. It's easy from a mental standpoint to get tired, to get complacent. They haven't. If anything, I feel like they've gotten more and more. Like, they're looking for, I think they're so locked into this game. I really feel like something tells me they're about to send a really early message in this game. I think the Tigers are going to take it and run with it. I think they're going to, not be shocked by it. They knew who they're playing against here. Dakota Weston is actually not the lowest ranked team left. It's Dakota State, who's the 3 seed. But one could argue the Tigers might be, not from a C standpoint, but I look at it and say, well, I can make an argument that they are. So I'm going Marion. I feel like they've just been playing on another level. They're looking like world beaters right now, but the Tigers are not going to make it easy. And it is going to come down to the Tiger side of the ball on that. Can their offense get some type of continuity rolling? Cool. Then can you have someone close it? Who is going to be your closer for the Tigers in a close game that I do expect for this one? Now we're going to jump over to, let's go Dort. Actually, no, I think that was going to be the longest one. That was probably going to be the longest one when I think about it. But I really do want to do the Dort one. Yeah, we'll do Dort. So we're going to go Dort and their win against St. Francis. I was thinking about the Dakota State side of things, but the Dort side is going to be real quick. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Dort just did what they do. And let me tell y'all something. Macy Severs, obviously, round of applause to her. Now the record holder for most assists in the NAIA. Unreal. Just a longevity thing for sure to show that. She had 20 points, 14 assists, 15 rebounds, 40% from the three-point line. Didn't miss a free throw, 6 of 17. Gracie Schuhoven also had 33, by the way. I don't know what you can say. I watched that Dort game, and it started off great. And St. Francis did have a really early momentum, but the offense I saw from Dort in the transition game specifically, ridiculous. Macy Severs pushing that ball up the sideline, up the court, anytime she can, every time she can. She literally looks like a quarterback, and her receivers are just taking off. The play is go ball every time, right? I'm very interested to see this matchup, and I am glad we're getting a rematch because what they played, and them, and meaning Dort and Dakota State in the regular season, was amazing. That was at the beginning of the year, right? So I'm very curious to see what's going to happen. But again, I just feel like Dort imposed their will over St. Francis. I mean, there was nothing really much you can say. 38 paint points. You had Coach Bill Hasman. He was going crazy on the sideline. Obviously, did get a technical, but I think the crowd really loved it. I think the crowd was up for it. They imposed their will. I mean, there's nothing much to say. 20 assists, 41 rebounds, 16 turnovers isn't great, but again, the speed that they play at, I can understand it. And you wouldn't feel it. I didn't feel those 16 turnovers. I thought maybe like 8, half that. You know what I'm saying? So I do believe that's an important part of this. They did only force 10 turnovers from St. Francis. So interesting thing there, interesting dynamic. And it's crazy to think that they only forced 10. They gave up 16, and they still won by over 20. That just shows how good the defenders are. And again, it was just Macy Severs' masterclass, a Gracie Schuhoven performance and a half. So yeah, there's really not much to say about that one. Dort just handled business. Now for the best game, I feel like, of the Big 8, Dakota State and Georgetown. I said for St. Francis and Dort, but also for Georgetown and Dakota State, if Georgetown gets some confidence early, Dakota State's in for a dogfight. Georgetown got out to a 10-0 lead early in that game. They were in for a dogfight for the rest of the game, but I do feel like this was an impressive win for Dakota State. I do feel like it was more of a win than a loss for Dakota State than Georgetown, because I do feel like Dakota State had to take this game. You know, like Georgetown was not going to let them have this game at all. So they had to go out and take it. Obviously, they fit. The turnaround, though, happened in that first quarter. I do believe that's the quarter that ended up hurting Georgetown, because you go off on a 10-0 run to start the quarter, but then the quarter ends 22-18 in favor of Dakota State. So from that 10-0 run, you only scored 8 points, and yet Dakota State went off for 22 for the rest of that quarter. That's really where the game came down to, in my opinion. Because for the rest of the game, you then obviously lose to the second quarter as well. 26-19 doesn't help, but then you win the next quarter, 26-18, shrink the deficit to, I believe, one possession. I think 2 points maybe on the analog 3 ball that beat the buzzer. And in the third quarter, or in the fourth quarter, you lost by 3 points. Not enough, obviously, but there was time. Georgetown had the lead. The Tigers had the lead. They had the lead, just couldn't handle and close it out, obviously. This Georgetown team, on a quick note for them, they're going to be nasty next year in the Mid-South. I mean, I obviously am not fully aware of who's coming back, but the ones who I do believe are coming back, it's going to be a long season in the Mid-South next year. Georgetown's going to be a lot of fun to watch, for sure. But again, Dakota State, Caitlin Dyer, 16. Tabor Teal, 16. Sierra Watkins, 13. 11 from Ella Carson off the bench. I don't know what else you can ask for except a better start, really. I think this is the type of game that Dakota State needs. I think they needed this game, especially going into the Dort game now, because obviously, again, this is a rematch from early in the season. I'll get to that in a moment. 44 paint points for the Trojans, 31 bench points. Big were the bench points for Dakota State. This is going to be a game where I look back on it and I think to myself, Dakota State makes a run here. It's going to be this is going to be a game. This is going to be the biggest reason for it, because again, Georgetown had a lot of momentum. Obviously, they just beat Freed Hardeman, They're coming into this game very, very confident in their abilities. Are they on a little bit of a hot streak shooting the ball? Probably, but you don't know when that's going to cool off. So you got to go in, and it didn't cool off at the beginning of the game, 10-0, and then they erase a deficit the rest of the way, shrinking it to a one-possession game going into the fourth quarter. It was easy for Dakota State to kind of get shell-shocked, and they didn't. They locked in. They went to their All-American, Tabor Teal, 16 points, 16 rebounds, 6 blocks, showing her two-way ability in this game. I don't see anything else. And the craziest part of all of this, the minutes played probably were the best you could ask for from Coach Mo and his staff. Because Caitlin Dyer and Tabor Teal have 16 points each. They only played 3 quarters, exactly 3 quarters, 30 minutes. 30 minutes. And you might look at me and say, well, what do you mean by 30 minutes? Well, for reference, on the Dakota State, on the Dort side of things, Gracie Schuhoven had 36. Macy Severs had 37. Willow Bleeker had 33. And you might say, oh, it's only a couple minutes after. Yes, but, and there's 2 sides to every coin, obviously. But I'm going to side on this on the end of, you're able to do this and play your best players save them a whole quarter, a whole 10 minutes, you were able to save them. That is going to help you down the stretch. It's going to help you into that fourth quarter. As opposed to on the Dort side, for example. Gracie only sat for 4 minutes. Macy only sat for 3 minutes. That's not going to be enough time. Now, again, that's in a Big 8, in the Final Four, in the Fab 4. Maybe Dakota State goes for a full 40. I don't know. But I'm just saying, I think coming into this game, obviously all the teams are off right now. I'm recording on Sunday. They're all off right now. They're taking the rest day. Probably having a very light practice. All of them are, just to kind of get tuned up. Probably watching some film mostly. Especially in this game, they know they've seen each other. They have enough film to kind of watch on it. So it is going to be a little bit of an interesting dynamic here. But rest and recovery is big. And how any minutes you're able to steal, the Tabor-less minutes for Dakota State and the Macy Severs-less minutes for Dort, very important. Dakota State was able to survive for 10 minutes without her and Caitlin out there. 20 minutes combined between those 2 players, they were able to survive. That's massive. That's massive. For the Dort defenders, Macy and Gracie played almost the whole game. Yes, you obviously blew them out by 20, but there is an argument to be made. Did they need to play those 4 minutes just to rest them up? Again, that was advocate playing 2 sides to the coin here, but I think that's an important part coming into this game. For this game specifically, and I'll go back to obviously their matchup earlier this year, back in November. 4-point win for Dort. It was at Dort. No, it was at Dakota. It was at Dakota State. Well, not at Dakota State, but specifically, it looked like Dort was marked as the home team. It looked like Dort was marked as the home team. So I'm going to say that they were the home team, but I believe it was at a neutral site. 82-86, like I mentioned, Dort won. Dort killed him the first half, first quarter, 23-11. Then Dakota State flips it on its head, 22-15 in the next quarter. 24-26, third quarter, Dort won that one. And then 25-22, fourth quarter, Dakota State won that one. Now, there was a very questionable call that happened in that game. Can't remember off the top of my head what it was. I haven't gone back. I couldn't find it back in the archives. But there was a questionable call that, kind of could have gone in the favor of Dakota State down the stretch, especially when they're pressing and whatnot. But in this game, you had Tabor Teal only had 3 points, 8 rebounds, 6 turnovers. Caitlin Dyer led Dakota State with 15 points, 8 rebounds. On the Dort side of things, Macy Severs, 23, Gracie Schuhoven, 23, Olivia Harzin, 20, and then Willow Bleeker, 13. You only won by 4, right? So definitely something underlining in there. For the Dakota State side of things, what I'm looking at is, obviously it starts with Tabor. Starts with her. She's got to have a very Tabor game. She can't have 3 points. That can't happen. 8 rebounds probably can't even happen. I need more. I need to have a double-double. Like, I think a double-double bare minimum for her and Macy, by the way. It's not just Tabor, but for her and Macy to start negotiations. I don't think if either one of those players don't get that, I don't know if their respective teams win. That's how good they've been. That's how good they need to be. And that's who they're playing. That's the level of respect that the other team has, in my opinion, that they're playing. So I'm looking at that for sure for the Dakota State team. I do think the bench points probably going to go in favor of Dakota State, which is going to be a big plus for them. Shooting the ball in this game, 47% from the field, 39% from the three-point line, not bad. They cannot shoot 61% from the free throw line. I don't know how many times you're going to get Dort into foul trouble. In this game, Dort committed 21 fouls. In their last game against St. Francis, they committed 20. So they're averaging, again, this was a game in November and a game literally just last night. I don't think they're a bad, defensive team, but they clearly are going to commit fouls. You have to take advantage of those fouls. For St. Francis in their game against Dort, they went 18 for 22, right? So they got 22 free throw attempts. And for Dakota State, they had 18 free throw attempts in their game against Dort. You got to be able to take advantage of at the line. You got to. Those are free points. In a game like this, you got to take every point you can get. Whether you're up or you're down, you got to be able to add to that lead or cut into that lead from the line. 21 turnovers cannot happen. Cannot happen. You got to be able to take care of the ball. That also goes for shooting the ball. I could make an argument in this game, if you're Dakota State, if you can't get a clean shot on the rim, take the shot clock violation. Take the shot clock violation. Do not let them get out and run in transition off bad misses. Because you take a long shot, it's going to be a long rebound. That's a launch pad for the transition game for Macy Sievers and the defenders getting out and running. Do not give them free chances to run. Make them have to play you in a half-court situation. Do I think that Dort can't do the half-court game? No, of course not. They're the two-time defending national champions and are two games away from making it three-time. They're 2 games away from the dynasty here, y'all. But if you make me pick, I would rather deal with their half-court than their full-court game. Because Macy Sievers, I saw her make a pass thread the needle through 2 defenders from St. Francis that I don't know how she got it through. So I would rather deal with the half-court game than the full-court transition game. I would. At the same time, the other part that I'm looking at, the rebounds, note there, 40 rebounds for Dakota State, 38 for the defenders in this game, in the previous game. For the defender side of things, or actually, I'll wrap it up. I'll wrap up the Dakota State side with this. I say let Macy go for 40. Let her go for 40. She is the definition of a matchup nightmare. You take her away, she's going to drop dimes all night. She's going to get rebounds. You try and, play one-on-one with her. She'll give you a cool 20 without even really blinking. But I fully believe that she's at her most dangerous like she was in this game against the Cougars. Triple-double. Even in this game against the defenders, 23 points, 11 assists, 8 rebounds. She's going to get her buckets. She's going to get rebounds. That's fine. Let her go for 40 and 15 points and rebounds. The assists are what make her unguardable. Because now she's not just getting buckets herself, but she's also keeping her teammates involved. She's also getting her teammates shots. Again, 23 from Gracie. Beaker had 13 in their last game. I'll even talk about their last game more so. You're looking at it. You had 20 from Macy, but you had 33 from Gracie. Willow, she had 12. Olivia had 7, 6 from Desta. That is her biggest strength for Sievers. She is going to make sure her offense is flowing. So how do you do that? There is an argument to be made. Again, this is strictly from watching that game and realizing you're not going to take Macy Sievers away. You're not going to do that. You can face guard her all you want, but you ain't taking her away. If anything, you're just making her life easier. Because now she knows what she's got to expect. Let her go for 50. The Dakota State team can outdo that. If Macy Sievers goes for 50 points, I'm confident that the Trojans can get at least 51 as a team, right? But if Gracie has 20, but has 14 assists, it's another 48. That's 48 points right there. Right there. It's going to be too tough, I feel like, for Dakota State to deal with Macy on all 3 facets of the game. The defense, the offense, and the playmaking. I think you got to live with the defense and the offense. You're not going to be able to keep her from rebounding the ball. You're not going to keep her from. That's the other thing. That's the other thing I really think about with these type of players. Okay, take her away. Face guard her. The girl's averaging almost 10 rebounds a game. She's almost averaging a triple-double. 15 rebounds. How are you going to take her away if she's going to go get rebounds? Not let her get rebounds? That doesn't make any sense. That's why I don't think face guarding her is going to be the answer. It's going to be when she does get the ball, basically one-on-one defense. No help off anybody. Do not get backdoored. Person on the ball. Make her have to work for everything. Don't let it be easy now. I'm not telling y'all give her 40 points just walking into everything. Make her have to work. But that's the best way I can think of to try and slow her down. Let her get her buckets and trust your offense and your team to be able to do this. Transition game will be the last note. Both these teams love to run. Both these teams have point guards and ball handlers that can push the ball up the court. Both of these teams' best players can dribble the ball. Whoever wins the transition game is going to be the biggest outcome. And again, it goes back to defense too. Whoever can force bad shots the most. Because I don't know, these teams take care of the ball too well. I don't think anybody's going to have like high turnover numbers. Probably over 10 for both of them, but not like 20, 25 turnovers. I think it's more about shooting the ball. Who can force the other team to more bad shots that hit the rim, clank the other way? Now we're going transition, getting out and running. I think that's going to be the biggest thing for sure. As for my pick, I'm torn. I think this game is harder to pick for me than the Dakota Wesleyan and Marion game. Oh man, this is. And I know I'm not gonna be right. Like my gut feeling is going to Dakota State because of the regular season matchup, how it went. I think they look at it as a great opportunity to try and get their get back. They feel like they probably had it right there. This is going to be a road. This is not going to be a road game for anybody. I think it's going to be a packed house for sure. I'm going to go Dakota State. I'm going to Dakota State. I don't feel confident with it. I'm 50-50, legitimately down the middle. If you want to talk to me about Dort, hey, I don't even need you to talk to me. I believe you. I'm fine with it. But I'm going to Dakota State. I just feel like they had a tougher game. They've had the toughest run so far than Dort. And I'm a big believer in how that works. I mean, again, looking at Dakota State, they started this run, go rough shot over Grandview, right? Then you go and you handle a Bethel team from the KCAC that was balling at the time. Then you take care of a very scrappy, very, very, very exciting future Indiana Wesleyan team. And then obviously Georgetown, again, momentum team. I think Dakota State has the most momentum right now over Dort because you're looking at Dort. They handled Simpson. They handled Rocky Mountain, Mid-America Nazarene, even St. Francis. I do find it interesting that, and there's a world, on both Fab 4 games, and then I'll get into each team and how I feel like they could win the championship or not. For both Fab 4 games, you've got the same matchup. You've got a 1 seed in Dort and Marion who have not really been tested yet. They've won almost every game, I believe, by double figures. Every single one. And then you've got a Dakota team, for being honest here. Dakota West and Dakota State, who they've had to fight a couple times now. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, for I say Dakota Wesleyan had a little bit of an easier run in terms of how their games went than Dakota State. Obviously, the Bethel game was the closest one. You had a very impressive, dominant win over Lindsey Wilson that I was not expecting, to be honest with you guys. College of the Ozarks, solid game. St. Francis, Illinois, I was expecting that to be a blowout. College of the Ozarks, honestly, was expecting to be a blowout as well. So I think Dakota State has had the toughest run. Again, two sides of every coin. Some people out there are going to be like, well, that's why they're not going to be able to do it. They're going to be tired. They're exhausted, whatever they did. Remember, they play pretty much a whole 10-woman rotation. So it's not like they're out there riding their starters till the end of the game. I'm on the side of I'd rather be tested throughout a series, throughout a run, than not. I do think Dakota Wesleyan has a little more test in them than the other two teams, for sure. But Dakota State's got the most battle-tested run so far in the tournament. And I'll start with Dakota State for, again, the championship game. If Dakota State's able to make the championship game, what I'm looking at is, yes, they're experienced in this tournament. I think that they have the experience. And the experience, I think, is the biggest note that I would give them, the most compliment I would give them, because it's Tabor Teal. I'm watching that game against Georgetown. Obviously, Dakota State wins. Everybody's happy. Everybody's excited. I'm watching Teal go over to her huddle. Everybody's jumping. Everybody's up. Everybody's excited, as they should be. She's not. She's not jumping around. She's not throwing her hands in the air, waving like, just don't care. I had to. I'm sorry, you guys. She's not doing anything like that. She's happy. I can see her like smiling and screaming and happy with her team. Obviously, she was the one that put the sticker on the or grab the trophy and all that kind of stuff. But I'm looking at her and I'm like, that girl's locked in. Like, she's happy about it. Again, I know she is. I can see it on her face. But she understands that the job's not done. And when your leader, when your best player has those mannerisms, has that like swag and walk to her, it becomes infectious to the rest of the crew. That's my biggest positive for why I feel like Dakota State can make a run here. Every one of these teams, again, I'm only going to pick one thing from each team because every one of these teams check multiple boxes. If they didn't, they wouldn't be here. There is no, you can make a case for Cinderella for Dakota State and Dakota Wesleyan because technically they're not one seeds, whatever the case is. Obviously, Dakota State's the lowest seed right now, 3 seed, but is it really the Cinderella run? I don't think so. They could have been a 2 seed for sure. So each team's going to have multiple, but I'm going to pick the one thing that I feel like their highest thing and the one thing I feel like I'm the most worried about. For Dakota State, again, the experience, the highest thing. It's also what I'm most worried about. They have gone through the ringer for some of these games, especially the last 2 games now. Georgetown and Indiana Wesleyan were not easy games. They had to fight back in those games. That can catch up to you when you start playing against a Dort you start playing against a Dort and either a Dakota Wesleyan or a Marion. That is going to be my biggest no as well. If the rotation stays the way it's going, it sounds great, but I do feel like Coach Mo and his staff is going to have to go into those 30s for Tabor Teal, Kalen Dyer, for those type of players. They're going to have to go into the 30s now. How do they last? Especially defensively, the way that they play, pressing for almost the whole game, especially down the stretch of games specifically, but pressing, how is that going to be able to hold up throughout 40 minutes? We will have to see. For Dakota Wesleyan, they make it to the championship game. My biggest note, their defense. I think that their defense has been legit all year. They are the biggest hurdle for Dort. And I truly believe the defenders want Dakota Wesleyan because how poetic, 30 for 30-esque, ESPN-esque, for Dort to lose the GPAC conference tournament to Dakota Wesleyan. Both these teams end up on opposite sides of the bracket, as they should. And now you get back to the championship game, and to not only cap off a three-peat at the national level, but you get to do it against a team that did not let you do it in the GPAC. I think there's something poetic about that. But I do believe their defense is the biggest thing that I'm looking at. I believe that is the calling card for the Tigers in this run that they could be on. My concern is the offense. It is the offense, but again, not because they don't have any flowing like that. No. I look at Dakota State, Tabor Teal, got it. I look at Dort, Macy Severs, got it. I look at Marion, Abby McNally, got it. Dakota Wesleyan is the one team. If I told you who is the player that you are most comfortable giving the ball to in a spot to go get you a bucket, who is it? They've got options. And again, I say it again, they have options. But there is something to be said for having the one, having someone that knows, no, it's going to her. Where coaches will always say this, and they should stand by it. You win and lose with your best player having the ball in her hands. I can live with it. No matter if it's at the professional level, the college level, the high school, whatever the case is, you live and die with your best player having the ball in their hands. If it's a close game, Tabor Teal is going to try and get the ball. If it's a close game, Macy Severs is going to try and get the ball. Ivy McNally is going to try and get the ball. Dakota Wesleyan's got, like I said, Avery, Emma, Riley. Oh, she gave me 40 the other night. But if you look at that game and her 40 points, it's the offense of Dakota Wesleyan is ridiculous from just moving the ball, all the sets, all the quick hits they have. They will execute you death by 1,000 cuts. That's a compliment in itself. But at the same time, you get down to it, one possession game, tie game, you're down 1, whatever the case is, 30 seconds left. You might try and run some stuff, but it really comes down to flat ball screen or four flat. Give her the ball to your best player, let her work. Get her to her spot, let her work. And I don't know if Dakota Wesleyan has that right now. Now, I'm not saying you can't win like that. You can win like that. They clearly have been able to do it. My question is, when you get down to it, when you're playing Marion, for example, and it'll be the next thing I talk about, you're playing against Marion, when they're on offense, the ball's going to go to Ivy McNally. Or at least she's going to have the ball in her hands, make a decision. For Dakota Wesleyan, there is a thing, like I said, there's an argument to be made like, oh, well, that's a good thing. They don't know where it's going to go, whatever. But from a team standpoint, that can also hurt you because now you're thinking, do I give up this shot? Do I take it? Are we going to get a better shot? For Marion, if Abby gives you that, if Abby passes the ball off, it's because you have a clean shot. Take the ball. You know what I'm saying? Like, she had a look, couldn't take it. Here we go. But I don't know if that's going to be the case for Dakota Weston. So that's my biggest concern. The defense is the best thing I can say about this Dakota Weston team. I'd argue maybe the best defense left. Hot take, I know. But something about this defense has had me giddy and goosebumps all year. All year. I won't say the best. I'll say the most underrated. I'll say the most underrated defense left. That's what I'm going to say. The offense, can they have that one player? Can we have a player go off even? Like, I'll even take that. Give me another Rosenquist masterclass. Cool. I think that's what I'm looking at in terms of their biggest hiccup. For Marion, best thing I can say about them, their defense as well. Their defense as well. They're suffocating. Like, they are the best. That's why I didn't want to say for Dakota Weston. I'm sorry, Dakota Weston, but I do believe Marion has the best defense left. Best defense. I'm looking at this defense with my own two eyes. Feels like they're covering the entire half court. Nothing is open. Everything's taken away somehow. They're still getting over the rotations on blocks, getting the rebounds. But I don't know how they're doing it. Marion, to me, is the best defense left. My biggest hiccup, they haven't been tested. I know I said before at the beginning of this episode, like, oh, that's not a bad thing, whatever. And it's not. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. Remember, everything that I'm saying is a concern for me. It's not a concern necessarily for them or a for sure thing, like, hey, they got to be. No. But that is a concern. Like, I can't overlook that. You haven't been tested yet. Not a single game within single digits. Within single digits. There has to be something to be said about that. Like, that has to come to light. Again, they were in the crossroads. They've had close games throughout the season, but, and I'm actually going to pull it up here because I'm kind of curious now. Their last game in single digits, right? So Campbellsville 73-43, Shawnee State 101-57, Columbia 70-47, Haskell 96-67. Their last close game was St. Francis in the Crossroads Championship game. They won by 7. That was at the beginning of the month. They've gone almost a whole month without playing a game under 10 points. Matter of fact, under 20 points. No, that's 30. Under 30 points. There is something to be said about that. Like, that is a great thing. That is a big plus to have, a big, notch on your belt. But it can also hurt sometimes because experience is a really important thing. I know I talked about them already having experience, but this experience in this tournament, how do you respond like that? So that's my concern. When it gets tight, I believe the Knights they're gonna respond. Like, I'm not trying to paint it as like, oh, they're gonna waver in the pressure. No, of course not. They're the Marion Knights, y'all. Come on. My question is, how much will that show itself? Where is what is the feel in that moment? You know what I'm saying? Like, how can they respond in that situation when it comes? Because it's going to come. If Marion blows out Dakota Wesleyan, I'm going Marion in the championship game against whoever. Because there's, like, what are we doing here? I do not expect this to be a blowout. I don't expect these games to be blowouts. They got to be under single digits. Because if they're not, I'm not counting 10 points, by the way, 11 or more. Either one of these 4 teams win their Fab 4 game by 11 or more points, I'm picking them in the championship game no matter what. No matter what. Because there's no way these games should be double-digit wins for anybody. Again, I'm not counting 10 points. For anybody. These should be dogfights for 40 minutes, some of the best basketball. I would say the 4 best teams pretty much all year. Again, Marion's been a top 5 team all year. Dakota State's been a top 5 team all year. Dakota Wesleyan should have been a top 5 team all year. Dort, been a top 3 team all year. When we're looking at it, these were the top 4 teams almost all year in that mix. So we're going to get some of the best basketball all year. How does Marion respond in that type moment? Because it's going to get tight, y'all. It's going to get tight. That's my biggest concern and my biggest my biggest worry for the Knights. That brings us to the defenders. And we'll send y'all into the games tonight. First game is going to be Dakota State and Dort at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern. And then semifinals, number 2 will be Dakota Wesleyan and Marion at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. Championship is tomorrow, 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. For the defenders, experience at the national level, I can go with that. I can go with, Macy Stevers having a just unbelievable run right now to cap off her career. But I'm going to go with all of it. I think the strength of the defenders is they check every box. They've done everything. You know what I'm saying? I talked about Dakota State, their experience this tournament helping them. Dort's been doing that for the past 2 years, right? Talk about Dakota Weston's defense. Dort's got the defense. They've got the defense. Talking about Marion and their defense as well. I could argue their offense. I'm going to change. I'm going to go Marion's offense because their defense. That's what I'm going to say is their biggest strength. So on that note, Dort does that too. Like they're all three of them. All three of the things that I feel like is the biggest positive that I can give those teams. Dort has all those as well. And I could argue it being the best in each category if I really wanted to. So for the defenders, it's just that they may be the most complete team left because none of these teams that are left have won a championship in the past 2 years. None of these teams that are left have had that experience of making deep runs like this. I don't think any of these teams, the only team from last year's Fab Four is Dort. I don't think any of these teams made it to the Fab Four last year. And I'll check myself here real quick. So to make sure that I have it down right, because if I remember correctly, I think it was Briarcliff last year, Bethel, Dort obviously, and then Indiana Wesleyan. I think that was the breakdown of it. Brackets. Yeah, last year was Dort, Briarcliff, Bethel, Indiana Wesleyan. 3 number 1 seeds and number 3 seed. Last year, Dakota State, Marion made it to the quarterfinals, the Big 8, and lost to Dort. Dort was the number 1 seed and Marion was a 3 seed. For Dakota State, they made it to, trying to find them here. Dakota State. Dakota Wesleyan made it to the round of 32. They lost to Langston in that round, so they didn't even make it anywhere close to what they've made it this year. Great turnaround for them. And Dakota State, they're over here. They lost in the round of 32 as well. So no one in this Fab Four but Dort has made it to this moment in the past 2 years. That's got to go for something. My concern for the defenders is what I said earlier about what I feel like Dakota State could do. If Macy Severs, let's say she gets taken away in terms of her playmaking, who steps up? Who is going to be the one to orchestrate the offense if the teams decide you're not going to be a playmaker today? You are going to be a scorer the full 40 minutes. If you're out on this court, you are not look to make a pass. You're not going to make a beautiful dime. You're not going to set somebody up. No. You're going to put the ball in the basket, which is going to be fine. She can do that. But how does that affect the offense of the defenders? How does that affect what they do? Who gets buckets? How does that work? How does that go? I'm curious to see if that happens. So that's my biggest concern for the defenders. Making this championship run. 2 wins away from the three-peat and capping off the best run in NAIA women's basketball history. Gotta go back to at least since the merger. We'll say that. Since the merger, they are the first dynasty since the NAIA became one level. We can all agree on that. And if they do this, they put a stamp on it. They put a stamp on it. How does that look if Macy Severs cannot be the playmaker that she's been for the past 4 years, the assist merchant, the hub, the offense of this defenders team? How does that look if they take that away from the offense? That's going to do it for this episode, though, guys. Make sure you lock into the Fab Four tonight, the championship game tomorrow. Really excited to see everything come through. Again, like I said, we are going to have one more episode to bookend the entire season post-championship. Not sure when that will be live yet. I will try to have it live at the end of this week on Friday like normal. Can't guarantee that right now. Scheduling is a little bit up in the air, but that was going to be the plan, to have one more episode, bring everything, book it all together, and then head into the summer, and we'll get ready for a nice, relaxing off season. Again, really do appreciate everybody. Shout out to all the team that has helped me in covering the tournament with Twitter and Instagram, all that kind of stuff. Really do appreciate it. But again, that's going to do it for this episode, guys. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Almost 100 subscribers. Let's see if we can get it before the end of the tournament, y'all. It's going to be close. Appreciate y'all. Catch you on the next one.